Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul Show. I am your host, John Morris, and boy, we've got a show for you today because literally we have got some phenomenal things that are happening around our world right now that are going on literally as we speak, and I can't wait to talk about them and so much more in today's show. So roll those brand new credits, folks.
Mind, body, soul. Mind, body, soul. Let the music roll. Feel the rhythm grow. Mind, body, soul. Mind, body, soul. Let the music roll. Feel the rhythm grow. Mind, body, soul.
We are live. I'm delighted to be here with you back live in living color with the proper attire on, shall we say. I am your liberal host, John Morris, the artist, author, and psychologist and training coach for the creative mind, all of the really, really cool stuff. But I'm also your liberal host, and for this time that we are here today, we are going to be talking about all the crazy things that have been going on around the world, specifically focusing on how students are actually revolting against the pushed sexual agenda that's either coming from teachers, but teachers, as we know, just tell basically whatever they're told to tell a lot of the time. Is it coming from the government? Is it coming from, what we're trying to do, I think, in this show more than anything else, and I invite you to write your comments in and to share your views and everything else, is to actually explore where this agenda is coming from. Because when I look, as you're going to see later on today, and I should actually mention that all of the content for today is largely provided for by my lovely wife, Katie. And she's been sharing a lot of videos with me recently that's helped put together a lot of the stuff that furthered the conversation we were having last week. So we've got to start by asking, of course, as any psychologist does, what is the root of the problem? And obviously, we've got this mass woke culture that's going on about here. Now, I learned recently in an interview that the woke culture actually began more so when Black Lives Matter was going on, and it was a major thing in the news, and it was a major focus and talking point around the world. And it's been latched onto. It's got this idea, and I'm all for being nice, being respectful, being kind to people. But what I'm not for is people pushing their ideologies, pushing their viewpoints that are so damaging and harmful, and literally are forcing people to choose almost between being accepted, being in a role, being right, and doing what's right and just in many ways, shape, or form. And as we're going to show you momentarily, it goes from the ludicrously bad, bad, to the utterly insane in some of the things that have been going on in today's show. So with that in mind, we're going to bring up the first clip now. And this is actually something that came from an airport. I saw this. I can't believe it. But I was so surprised about it. I thought, I need to share this in today's show. So you watch this. I'm just going to make sure that everything is live and all good and all that kind of stuff. And see what you make of this.
A little bit of advice for the school teacher.
Imagine getting this triggered because someone misgendered you.
What about when an adult employee misgenders you intentionally?
While he's talking, you're talking.
You just misgendered me again.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Gotcha.
Both of you have.
Sorry.
Wasn't intentional, but if you want to take it personal, that's also.
Well, she did do it intentionally twice.
You're talking to me too.
You said she and then you said he.
You're being condescending, and if you want to continue, I have full authority to escort you out the building right this moment. If you want to play that game with me.
Okay.
Would you like to continue 3 days before Christmas? I really don't mind.
I'm good. I'll just put this on.
So when I'm watching and seeing things like this, there's a lot of things that go through my mind, and I think probably the same with you. First of all, to whoever this person was, male, female, other thing. And here's the thing. We're going to talk about this in another video, but this year in 2024, I've had a lot of health issues, a lot of serious health issues. as has my wife, as has many other people around the world. And for some of us, we are literally just trying to get from here to here, from rising to sleeping, with the minimal amount of struggle and difficulty possible. And also, we're trying to stay alive in the very literal sense of the meaning of the word. Okay, we're trying to stay alive. You have health issues. There's all sorts of stuff. As I say, we're going to talk about that in another video, which we may stream immediately after this one. But I don't want to lose focus and sight of that. With that in mind, when people are just trying to get from one day to the next at the moment, if your biggest issue in life is how somebody views your gender, how somebody views your pronouns or whatever else. Now I'm of an age, I'll be honest with you. To me, you're either male or female, and there is nothing in between. There is absolutely nothing in between. Because you identify that way, it does not make it so. And again, Piers Morgan had said this, he can identify as a two-spirit penguin. It doesn't make him a two-spirit penguin because we apparently, the leftists or the normal people, let's go with that. We can't identify as that. Only people of the leftist community and the woke culture apparently, according to some of their rules, can do. Now, of course, this isn't a blanket thing for everybody. What I find most saddening and shocking about this whole thing is, and I can't entirely blame the children because you only know what you know. And I feel like I'm saying this every single week. You only know what you know. And if you've been raised in a world where you are told, hey, you can behave whatever way you want, you can identify as you want, you can be a cat in Canada that, will give you, cat litty boxes where you can go and pee in them in front of everybody else and be really cute and you can meow in class. And we're meant to play along with this completely idiotic, insane lunatic. It's mental health issues. In psychology, we call it playing into the delusion, continuing the delusion, feeding the illusion that you are something that you're not. I have a friend of mine until recently that identifies now as a man, and I only ever knew him, her as a female. And it was one of the hardest things. And I think in some ways, when people say to me, I'm a man, when you've been raised as a woman, what I come back to now, and as any good psychologist should, any good mental health professional should, is how do you know? And I don't say this to be, arrogant or flippant or rude or to try and offend anybody, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to understand what is at the root of all of this. So basically, what you're telling me then is 2016 years since the birth of Christ, where the majority of human beings on the planet have been able to coexist and get through life from life to death as a male or a female. And now all of a sudden we're being told, no, you're wrong. You don't know who you are. People are questioning themselves. People are doing this, people are doing that. Okay. Where is this stemming from? What's going on? The other thing as well is, like I said, how do you know that you're a man? You've never been a man before. And it all comes back to the whole point of what happens if you go through all of these challenges, all these changes, all these surgeries that cost hundreds and hundreds and, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, dollars, whatever. You go through all of that. You're exploited for the pursuit of, it's not even for science, it's for evil. And it doesn't work. What happens then? Something else that I've noticed as well, and there was another case that happened in Maybole, Scotland yesterday, where the police, let's turn their attention there. If you actually look here in the UK, the police now are getting so much flack, so much bad stigma against them because they are stepping out of lines. And don't get me wrong, now I know a lot of, police officers. I've known a lot of police officers over the years in the work that I did in youth ministry. And okay, I may not have shared their views and everything, but there is nothing worse than a bent copper. There is nothing worse than a copper that believes he or she is above the law. And essentially, it's the same when you've got radical extremists. Most people of religions and faiths and gender ideologies and whatever you are want to live in peace and harmony. The trouble is the ones that are wanting to, become big shots and become, more amazing and listen to me, everybody. Woo, look at me. That's where a lot of the judgment and the issues and the struggles are coming from. And as we're going to watch in this next clip, it needs to be addressed. And I'm delighted in many ways that people are waking up. And again, as I've said to you so many times before, if you are someone struggling with your mental health right now, with gender ideology, with, who you believe you are, I firmly believe it is a severe mental health struggle. And the problem is because the school boards are now being told, what to teach and how to act, and the governments are feeding this and all this. There's some big agenda seemingly going on here because it's not being addressed. You're being played. Remember that governments are not your friends. Remember that governments are not only not your friends, but they will tell you things that you want to hear so as they will get your votes and you will keep them in power. That's the only reason that they do what they do. It's as simple as that. Now, I'm very much, of one opinion. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but I'm very much aware as well. They are businessmen and women at the end of the day, and they will tell you what you want to hear. But people are starting to wake up. People are starting to speak out, and I'm delighted about it. And like I say, I do not say any of this because, white privilege or any of that garbage, because I certainly don't have white privilege. Okay, just want to put that out there. I don't have white privilege. I don't care. I'm happy to come on the show. You're more than welcome to. And tell me how I've got white privilege, because I'll say things that'll enlighten you. And friends of mine that are watching the show, they know the story. There's no white privilege oftentimes, and certainly not here in the UK. In this next clip, we want to talk about and share with you how some of the students are now speaking out against ideologies that the teachers, that the government, and even parents are pushing. So I want to share this with you. It is a little bit loud, so you may need to turn down your little volumizer. But take a look at this, and we'll be back in a moment.
A little bit of advice for the school teachers. Listen to me. Start showing your students some respect. We are not interested in knowing what you think about sex or gender. We will make up our own minds about that by using critical thinking. We don't need to know what you think, and definitely do not need you ramming your opinions down our throats. So please keep these things to yourselves. We don't want to know. With that said, let's now get back to talking about mathematics, English, and science. We go to school to learn these things. We do not go to school to learn about sex. It's one disaster after another with these disgusting tyrants. And we don't want them and this evil transgender propaganda.
So, first of all, major kudos to her. She was all over social media this past week, and I think it's such an important thing now that children, again, for years people have been like, well, children really have the voice that they do, and when you hear amazing stuff like that, and coming from others as well, I would say absolutely. Now, again, you can't blame the children because, again, if you are born and you are raised into a world where this sort of thing is accepted and becoming more so, and the delusions are being, encouraged, then you cannot blame children when they want to live out their fantasies. You can't even blame some adults who are severely mentally ill, quite frankly, and facing some severe mental health challenges. You look no further than the internet and social media and how that's being pushed and everything. But I was immensely proud to hear, such well-spoken views as the one that this girl shared, because it is evil, and I say that, as I said earlier on, to anybody who's going through gender dysphoria, who's not certain who they are, please seek mental help and help by a qualified professional that knows what they're doing, that has a long track record in this, that can give you independent advice, that is not going to be coerced or coaxed one way or the other, and that literally can sit down with you and say, this is, I think, what's going on here. We've covered this in other videos as well, of what actually is going on in your brain during puberty. And it is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. Well, how your brain is flip-flopping around, and sometimes you'll feel more masculine, sometimes you feel more feminine. But that doesn't then mean that, right, I need to have, my breasts removed or my penis removed and in place put a vagina, or vice versa. It's whoever's behind this, and I've got a good idea at the moment, I can't say anything concretely, but whoever's behind this has to be strongly reprimanded, as does the teachers, as does the governmental officials that are proselytizing this, that are preaching this, that are encouraging this just to get more seats. Nicola Sturgeon and co. in the SNP. Yes, I will voice you because you know for a fact that that's actually what you've done. And I have no shame and no fear in saying it because it's all factual. But here's the other thing. The girl is right in what she said. And again, a point that we made many, many years ago when all of this began was how kids go to school to learn essentially how to become a cog in a machine, a much wider picture. How literally they go to school to learn how to work, how to be in the workplace, how to function as a member of society. That's why a lot of homeschools are not particularly well thought of, because you don't necessarily know how to engage in society with people you don't like, but you're going to find out at some point or other. You're not going to school to be taught hatred and, the ideologies. And again, if you know and look at history, you will see how young children have been mentally molested for many, many years in this area. Back in the 1940s, you were taught basically how evil Nazis were and how evil Germany was and how evil Hitler was. And all of these things, you taught evil, evil, evil. So you're taught to hate. You're not born into this world to hate. You are taught how to hate. And people forget that you are taught these things. You are taught how to be prejudiced. You are taught how to judge somebody else. So when you see these things going on, use a little bit of common sense, use some thought. And again, I love what the girl said. In the final clip that we're going to play today, we've got a quiet audience today. So I'm assuming that a lot of them, either because of our new time frame or whatever it is, is just staggering some people, of course. But in this last clip, we want to talk about some really important things that are going on in schools over in the United States with our friends across the pond. And then we'll come back for these closing messages.
Oh, this is good. God bless this mother. Watch this.
Hello, everyone. I've been coming here for 5 years now, and I was going to talk to you about some practical things that I thought you could change about 3210. But I've changed my mind. I've been really confused over the last 5 years as to why we spend 45 minutes to an hour of every public meeting talking about how great everyone is and how great everything is in the schools, and now I've figured it out. I figured it out because all these people came here to defend you all from hurtful words. This is obnoxious. Let me just say, there is one goal for the educational system. It should be to prepare children to enter careers to be productive members of society. It is not a counseling session. It is not a self-help area. It is not somewhere to find yourself, and we should not be led by the children, for goodness sake. The children are called dependents for a reason. They depend on us who have fully developed brains. You cannot feel your way through life. The issues that we are talking about, we are bringing you statistics. We are talking about scholastics. We are talking about funding. We are talking about busing. We are talking about trying to figure out how to make our children be as successful as possible. And I am sure that that is your goal. And what we have been called tonight is what they're claiming that we're saying to children. We're having an adult conversation. There are not children in this room. We aren't going into the schools and calling them names. They call us Marxists and hateful and bigots and everything else under the sun. Well, let me tell you, less than 5% of the entire population of North Carolina identifies as LGBTQ. You guys all claim you want democracy. Well, you know what democracy is? It's the majority plus one. It's 50 plus 1. You know what? More than 50% of the people in this state claim that they believe in God, Almighty God, who made us male and female, God who made marriage between a man and a woman, God who said that we must protect our children. The fact that we can stand up here and we know, we can brag about all of the wonderful graduations, but we know the statistics. 50% of children did not pass their end of grade test. What are we celebrating? We have children coming up here telling us how horrible the mental health crisis is. Why? Most of us went to public school, and all of our All of our peers are not in mental health crises. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to our children? I'm going to say we are discussing things with them that they are not emotionally, intellectually, and morally able to handle. That is what is causing the anxiety. That is what is causing the depression. That is what is causing the confusion. We need our children to be able to be children, to be able to be innocent, to be able to enjoy childhood and not know all of the drama and all of the difficulties in adult life. That is what we want. We want our children to be able to read and write and to think for themselves, and we demand that the children who fear God are protected in your schools.
Some very interesting points of view made by that lady. A number of things that I want to touch on. While I don't agree with everything that she said, there was a lot in there that I do. When she says that, children aren't going to school to find themselves, it's not, self-help and all this kind of stuff. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because I think, in an environment, and this is something that Laurie Bischoff and myself, shout out to Laurie, who's currently traveling. I'm hoping to meet with her later on today where we talk about teen life coaching. But that's one of the things, is that if people are meeting together in a school situation and they're learning how to think for themselves, how to develop inner engineering, how to take care of their inner core, how to be mindful of others, how to be aware, but not taking on all these human-made ideologies. I think it's a really important thing and a really important skill to learn, as well as confidence, as well as, a lot of other things that we are talking about and we're teaching. In our courses, obviously, there you go, you can see across the bottom of the screen, where we're talking about teen life coaching, and it is very, very important. I fully agree with her that children nowadays are far too exposed to things that they are not emotionally and mentally capable of. Again, a 5-year-old does not need to know how to masturbate. As a child, you're going to find that out for yourself, because naturally children are curious. Humans are curious. That's what we do. That's what animals do. They're curious. But to have people coming in as drag queens and to be teaching this kind of stuff is not something that I think should be going in school. Now, she said something there with regards to anxiety and depression. So I want to touch on these because I think I have to be very, very clear as a future mental health professional. Depression is caused by an imbalance of serotonin, and the serotonin in your body is the thing that makes you feel happy, and it's like, yay, hallelujah, and an imbalance of this, can literally make you feel, I don't want to be here anymore, this is terrible. Or it can make you feel like, yay, this is wonderful, and if it's out of balance one way or the other, you're going to have some serious issues that are going on. So depression, in terms of the medical side of things, is not a feeling. Now, a feeling of depression is something different. A feeling of depression is where you feel like you have no purpose, where you feel you have no joy, where you feel you have no understanding, no place in the world, there's nobody who loves you, all that kind of stuff. That is something completely different. So don't get those two mixed up, folks. It's very, very important that you don't get those two mixed up. Because again, a feeling of depression sometimes can be worse than the actual chemical imbalance itself, because if there's a chemical imbalance, it can be aligned by the use of medication, by the use of exercise, medication by the right practitioners, and in the most extreme cases. I'm not a just pill it kind of mental health professional, but it's important that you're aware of these different things. Now, anxiety forms, I know we've talked about this a number of different times, but I'll do it again today, because again, something important is worth mentioning twice. But anxiety forms when you have a key experience that happens in your life. So it may be, something that was particularly frightening in a very frightening place. And your brain latches onto, and it says, well, that place was frightening, that, situation was frightening, and if I ever return to that situation again, I'm just going to it's going to be exactly the same. And your brain, being the great host that it is, tries to protect you from these, issues and from these, problems and things. So that's what's really forming anxiety. We are not born with anxiety unless we've had anxiety strands inside of us that form our DNA, which is a very small thing. But the other thing about it as well anxiety is again a learnt behavior. That's why when it became a trend and fadful, that people started jumping on the bus and then everybody had anxiety. So those are some things to be aware of with what she's talking about there. One point that I really found so interesting when she's talking about, the fact that 5% or under of people in North Carolinians, identify as LGBTQ or less. Found that really, really interesting as well, because again, when she's talking about democracy and people saying, it's the majority of people that are feeling like this. Not that she said that, I'm just throwing something out that again, other people have said. You start looking and thinking, again, there has to be an agenda that's been played here. The girl that we saw in the second clip, again, talking about this, there's an agenda that's being played. Why is this being played? What's going on? What is happening? Why is it so important? The powers that be tell us in our Western world that we've got to choose about sexuality. We've got to have a sexual culture. We've got to, free and open up everything else. And this is why it's so dangerous, just to let everybody do what they want. People keep saying, oh, let people be who they are. What about the pedophiles? What about the rapists? What about the sex offenders? Let them be who they are. What about the terrorists? Let them be who they are. Is that what you're saying? Is that ultimately what we're saying? Please don't sound clip that particular thing, folks, and take it out of context. But this is the sort of thing that, again, you got to be aware of. You got to be asking. You got to be looking for. What is actually going on here? And the final comment that she made, which I did find very, very interesting, because a lot more people have been returning, shall we say, to faith and to God and to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And there's a lot of biblical prophecies that are being fulfilled right now, my friends. And Katie was talking to me about one of them yesterday, I think it was. And it was during, I think it was during when President or future President and former President Trump was shot. How Damascus, again, had been attacked, and whether or not it was laid in ruins or not, we haven't really got to the bottom of that yet at the time of recording this, but we're very much looking into that because, again, there is more biblical prophecies that are being fulfilled. Again, if you want a lot of the biblical prophecies, folks, you can go to Matthew 24. And again, I always say use this one with caution, because a lot of preachers, a lot of pastors like to cause this one. And you can tell this Bible's been well used. It's falling apart. It's falling apart. But it's when Jesus is foretelling the future. And it's very important that you don't then try and fit everything to make the future become. But just to give you an idea, a lot of people came, claiming that they are the Messiah. Well, we've seen that, of course. Yes, you don't take these things to heart. Nation will go against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There'll be families, there'll be earthquakes in all part of the world. But this is just the first part. And then it'll be arrested, persecuted, and killed. He's talking about believers. He's actually talking here about the disciples. You'll be hated all over the world because you're my followers. We're getting there. Many will run away from me. But the part that I, really always come to, and again, folks, as a theologian as well, I study many things, just so you know, but as a theologian as well, I always say, I know that the Bible has been tampered with by human hands, okay? It was tampered with when they were putting together the canonical scripture, the canon of scripture, how the Bible was going to look. Originally, we were talking about 88 books. Now we're down to 66, I think it is. So there's a lot of books that have disappeared from the Bible. What they had in there, what they said, I don't know. And again, we've got the Dead Sea Scrolls, which actually I've got books on somewhere else in the studio. But one of the most important things here that you want to be aware of is where it says, the love of many will grow cold. And that's something that really, really struck me and has done for many, many years. And I look about society now, and I've seen, a lot of people in both the rightist and leftist movements that have been so cold, so unfeeling, so unloving, and so disrespectful. What I always find it really interesting is you always have, politicians with polarizing views. You got leftists and you got rightists, but you've never got a balancist, which is where I try and spend most of my life. It's really hard to do because the moment you think you're balanced, you're off again. And then, you're off again. But the interesting thing about it is, when you're able to look at it and say, you know what, the importance of being a balancist means that I look at things from the left perspective, from the right perspective. And I say, what is the middle point here? What is the root? What's actually going on in this world? And what I see is that the love of many is growing cold, that the love of many is becoming very sad and very miserable, and people aren't happy. And that's something that I found more than anything else. You want to know why children have got the anxieties and the feeling of depression, the feeling of loneliness. It's because they're being pulled, as are we, in so many different directions. And I've said on many, many different occasions, many, many different times, the reason right now that you have the riots and the fact that we are one major riot away from a full inner city war is because, without a shadow of a doubt, people are sick and tired of being oppressed, of being abused, of having their hard-earned money taken off them, of being taxed out of their brains, even though in the UK we are not taxed as high as people in the United States, in Italy, in Norway, in Denmark, in Russia, in Turkey. We're sick and tired of being told we have freedom, but then being told, oh wait, you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't behave in this way. That if you say something that may be construed as offensive, that literally you can be sent to prison. When you're watching a teacher like Jordan Peterson, who's going to have to undergo re-education in order to be, by law, to continue practicing as a psychologist. When you're seeing, people in the media like Tommy Morrison, I believe that's his name. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's Tommy Morrison. And he was on Jordan Peterson recently. When you're seeing the media turn around and say, no, he incited everybody to riot. We know Starmer did it, who's the Prime Minister right now. Because now you've got the whole thing. It's like the leftists are blaming the right and the right are blaming the left. It's like, for goodness sake, know that you're being played. This happens in the United States. This is happening over here right now in the UK. Wake up, people. That's possibly why YouTube isn't sharing our videos right now. That's possibly why YouTube has sort of muted us down and we haven't got fans. We haven't got people coming on the show. Maybe people just don't want to hear about this particular show. I don't know. I think it's one of the better ones. I've got some energy and life to me. And in the follow-up video, we're going to be talking about fertility, the issues that we've had, and an update for 2024. It's going to be a shorter video, folks, but it's going to be one that hopefully you'll get a lot out of. For sure, if you are struggling right now and you are going through fertility, so do watch out for that on YouTube. Either watch it live with us, or you can obviously watch it later on. But I hope this has been helpful for you to see what's going on. I hope we've got points across that, again, to wake up to think. Don't just accept things as they are. These are very, very dark times indeed. And to quote Albus Dumbledore, the greatest magician, there is coming a time right now where people are going to have to choose between what's right and what's easy. And make sure you choose the right thing, because it will matter to you eternally. Eternally, eternally, eternally. As I said right at the beginning of the show, if the biggest issue that you have right now is whether someone pronounces your gender correctly, or someone accidentally or intentionally mispronounces you, or your gender misgenders you, if that's the biggest issues you got to worry about, my friend, you got it made. And I need to learn from you, because you're obviously doing something right. Heck, I ain't doing it. Whatever it is. If that's the biggest issue. But if you're someone like me, that through no fault of their own, I hope, was very nearly on death's door in January of this year, and again, more recently, the last thing that you're thinking about is properly identifying someone as gender. And quite honestly, could care less. Really could care less. It's no disrespect to you. It's not incited to be horrible or to incite violence or riots or anything like that. But genuinely, it is meaningless. It's all utterly meaningless. And as Alan Watts said, when you close your eyes for the final time, when your friends and family close their eyes for their final time, it'll be like you never ever existed. And all this pronoun stuff, all this gender stuff, all this ideology, all the LGBTQI stuff, all the rightists and leftists, the politicians, the teachers, the fighting, the kids, all of this kind of stuff, they will all go. It'll all be done and dusted. It does not even matter in the slightest. So when you are armed with that knowledge, my friends, go forth in your day, enjoy your life. Make it a good one. Nothing has meaning except the meaning that you give it. So give it a damn good meaning. And we'll see you in the next video. Let's finish on our opening credits, shall we, to lighten up the mood.
Body, soul.